Well, let's welcome in Don Hutchison and his beautiful moustache to take a look at some of those big games over the next 24 hours. Let's start off, shall we, Don? Wolfsburg taking on Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund, of course, very impressive last week, winning a lot of fans who maybe hadn't watched the Bundesliga before. They're against a Wolfsburg side that should prove to be a bigger test than Schalke were.
I would have thought so, especially in that derby. I thought Schalke would have offered up a lot more, but Dortmund cruised the game, winning by 4. But it felt as though it was 6 or 7. They were really comfortable. Wolfsburg are having a good season, sitting in the top half of the league, but a little bit inconsistent. But this Dortmund side, Dan, I just think they're a machine. I watched the way Haaland plays, and he's like a veteran. You know, he's 6'2", 6'3". His all-round game is terrific. Scored a great opening goal last week. The supply behind him. Julian Brandt is just an absolute superstar. Hazard looks as though he's got all the confidence in the world. And they're still missing some big players that they're just coming back from injury. People like Emre Can, Axel Witsel. Jadon Sancho was on the bench. He made a cameo appearance. So heavily, Dortmund, I would imagine, will win this one. I don't think it's going to be a 4, 5 or 6 job, but I fancy the away side big time.
Give me the score then, Don.
I'll go for an away win. I'll give it 3-1 Borussia Dortmund.
Meanwhile, another big game, Borussia Monchengladbach taking on Bayern Leverkusen. Gladbach looking good last week. Leverkusen, meanwhile, will fancy their chances. According to the bookies, Gladbach 7-5 to take all 3 points. Bayern Leverkusen just a shy ahead of 2-1 at 21-10.
Oh, this one's a scout and a manager's dream. This one, so many cracking young players. I think it's a tight game. I think it's one for the purists. I think it'll be a real entertaining game of football. When you look at Gladbach, you think of Thuram and Mbolo in good form, terrific young talent. But when you look at, you know, Leverkusen, Diaby, Wirtz, Kai Havertz is the jewel in the crown, and he was terrific getting a couple of goals last week. So I think this one's really a one for the purists, where you just sit down, you buy a bag of popcorn, you sit back, you relax, and you just watch a cracking game of football. Which way it's going to go, it could be a 3-2, it could be a 4-3 to anyone, but I think this game will be a real classic over the weekend.
Great analysis, Don. Thanks for that. Could be anyone's.
Well, it is. It's
come on here and tell us who you think is going to win.
It's a 4-3 game, Dan. It's a 4-3 game. These games can go either way. What I'm saying is, this is not going to be a 1-0 job and a boring hanging on. Someone's winning at 1-0. This is 4-3, entertainment to the max. And all right, Leverkusen are going to win it 4-3.
There we go. We got there in the end. Thank you very much. I would suggest that maybe Bayern Munich's game is a little easier to call. They're in action against Eintracht Frankfurt, who were terrible last week. Bayern 7-1 on. You really feel for Frankfurt going into this game because it's difficult to give them any sort of hope, Don.
Yeah, well, I said last week about the amount of goals that they've lost. Luka Jovic to Real Madrid and Sebastian Haller to West Ham, over 50 goals, and they've replaced them with Bas Dost, who is a simple centre forward. If you get crosses in the box, you know, he can win his flick-ons and decent in the air, but he's not in the calibre of the 2 players that I mentioned. So the supply line, and they're going to have to be defensive to get anything out of Bayern. But I just think Bayern are too strong. I think that, you know, even though it was one game, they didn't look that impressive against Union Berlin, but you still see people like Goretzka, who played well, and Thomas Muller, Gnabry, Lewandowski, of course. He got his goal, so he's in terrific form and got loads of confidence. So I think it's the home side by 2 or 3 and very comfortable for them.
Oh, just 2 or 3-0. I think many are thinking it could be a lot more. We will find out, of course, on tomorrow's show, where we'll be talking about all of those big games.